Hello and welcome. Third time's the charm, perhaps. I've been having trouble trying to record this. Today, I would like to talk to you a bit about multi-headed attention. I have been trying to understand this since it first came out. Let me run over the desktop here and pull up this paper here. Let me make sure I'm on the right place here. Yeah. So this paper, Attention is All You Need, came out in December of 2017. And at the time, I was spending a good deal of my time on Lex Fridman's Discord server. And I had gotten involved with some of his friends and students in something called the MIT Paper Club, where we read this. I think it was Yannick Kilcher who was kind enough to give us a presentation. He had access to GPT-3, and that was fun to play with. Uh, and even though this was explained to me, I had a lot of trouble with it, uh, especially the key query and value matrices and what those were for. Uh, no one was able to explain those to me in a way that made sense to me. Uh, so I think I've made some progress with it. If we take a look at this, what we're going to be talking about here is from here up through here to here. We're going to ignore this portion of it, or I'm sorry, just this portion of it here. Just going to ignore that. Uh, so, because what I'm interested in discussing is the way that the projection matrices are created for K, Q, and V, the key, query, and values. Uh, Now, I'm not sure that that term projection matrix is used at all in here. Uh, I think that this here would be the projection. Is that right? No, I don't think that's it. It would be out here. It would be before VK and Q. And just a quick look through here, I don't see anything about the projection matrices. But there are such things, I'm told. And so let me start by explaining what those are. So we have input in the form of the embeddings for tokens, the numerical embeddings for tokens, and that make up in most cases a prompt. But for training, we don't really call it a prompt; we just call it input. And input would be a sequence randomly selected from the training set of a random size, random number of tokens uh, that then has a token masked, and that is then passed in as input. And what we try to, let's go back to this thing here. So here for an input, we're putting in a random sequence from the training set with a random number of tokens and one of the tokens masked, and goes through all of this up here to probabilities where we are trying to predict the masked token. So when these come through here, uh, this multi-headed attention that it goes into first looks a bit like this. So we've got these three matrices here: the value, the key, and the query. Let's see if I can find more about these. I think that there's some other diagrams of them down here. I thought there was some other diagrams, but I don't see them. So I must have seen them in another paper or another presentation. But what happens is that these matrices, VK and Q, have to be created. And they are created by running the embeddings through three projection matrices. And those projection matrices are learned via backpropagation. So the way it was explained to me is that you run the input through these three projection matrices, and it prepares the embeddings into subspaces, three separate subspaces that are amenable for calculating attention. So I don't think it's really understood what's happening inside those projection matrices. I've been trying to find out. I thought, well, maybe things like stop words were minimized, the value of them. And that's probably true. Something like that probably is happening. But I don't think anybody knows with certainty what's being learned in those projection matrices. But we do end up with these three: value, key, and query. And so these two here, the key and query, they are then compared using a dot product. So scaled dot product attention. Now, so what is that? That is a way of determining the angle of the vector in semantic space. And so what happens here is this dot product is also given the softmax, and the softmax is used to make the values smaller. I think that the formula for that is the exponential of whatever the value is divided by the square root of the dimensionality. And so that gives us a normalized set of attention weights. It takes these two matrices and it creates one matrix, which is called the attention weights. And the attention weights are then multiplied by the value matrix. And then that in turn creates a matrix O, which is then sent over here to the feed forward network. So what's going on with the value here? This value has not been, where is it now? Now I can't find it. Uh, so this value here was used when creating O, but it has not been, where do those values come from? Well, it turns out that they come from the embeddings and from the projection matrix. And the projection matrix is also tuned by backpropagation. So, what exactly it's doing, I don't know. But it is, backpropagation is teaching it. It is learning from the loss and backpropagation, this projection matrix. Now, the projection matrix is permanent in the sense that it exists throughout the entire training process, and it's used later on for inference. So those three projection matrices are what are kept around. The K, Q, and V are created for every input. So they're created, they're used, and then they're destroyed. But before they're destroyed, we get O, the output from this. And so if we have a well-trained, multi-headed attention, what we actually get is three projection matrices. And of course, I'm sorry, I didn't say that properly. For multi-headed attention, you're going to have the dimensionality of the embedding divided by H. H is the number of attention heads. So let's say you have 8 attention heads. Let's say the dimensionality, to make the math simple, is 64. That would mean that each attention head would get 8 of the embeddings out of the total 64. And this is done so that these calculations can be done in parallel. And that, of course, speeds up the learning process and the inference. So the larger H is, the quicker things go. Now for ChatGPT, which has 1,500 dimensions, I have no idea how many heads were used, but I would imagine, let's say they had 100 heads. That would mean that each one would handle 15 of the dimensions, and that would make training go very much faster. I'm not saying that that's the number used. I don't think the number used has been published, so we can't know for sure. Now, so when O comes out, O is a matrix, and one is coming out of each of these attention heads, and they get concatenated together before being passed through to the feed-forward network. And then, of course, once it gets passed through here, it gets sent once again into a multi-headed attention head. And it continues on the same way through here until eventually we get this softmax out here so that we have one probability for a token. And I think that what's used here is what's called one-hot encoding. So you have your entire vocabulary, and one of these things would have the highest probability, uh, and that would be the one that's selected. Anyway, I hope that this has been helpful in understanding what's going on in self-attention. Anyway, I thank you for joining me, and bye-bye.